Welcome to A to Zephyr with Ryan Nauman from Zephyr. In this podcast, we help wealth managers, financial advisors, and asset managers overcome challenges in creating meaningful investor relationship experiences. We do this by introducing innovations driven by Zephyr's cutting-edge technology and global financial insights. Join us for this journey where we dive into pioneering wealth management strategies as Zephyr draws from decades of experience and guest financial wizards to address the nuances of investment management.
Hello and welcome to the A to Zephyr podcast. I'm your host, Bill Tucker. And for those of us joining for the first time and who may not know the benefits that Zephyr has to offer within the wealth management industry, let's start with a high-level overview. Zephyr is an investment management software used by financial advisors, wealth managers, asset managers, financial analysts, RIAs, and trust advisors. This podcast will address the many ways that your peers in the industry use it. But to give you a really quick look, Zephyr allows its customers, possibly you, to optimize portfolios, identify risk tolerance, ensure compliance, evaluate performance, create proposal generations, and more. 100% of customers create custom document proposals, re-proposals, and fact sheets to communicate with their clients. And here's the important part, turning those prospects into clients. In other words, this is a high-performance technology platform that you will want to add to its arsenal. And joining us in the podcast today is Chris Volpe. He is director of Zephyr. Randy Jones, Director of Product Management at Zephyr, and Ryan Nauman, Market Strategist at Zephyr. Gentlemen, good to be with you again. How are you?
Good, Bill. Great to be with you again.
Doing great.
Be back.
Bill, thanks for having us on again.
Well, there you are. We may as well talk to you, Chris, it's been a weird time in the market, so I'm kind of curious. What are some of the industry trends that you and the Zephyr team are following these days in the market?
Bill, there's so much going on that it's really hard to narrow it down. I mean, between the volatility that's happening and the fast changes in technology, it's a bit all over the place. But I think some of the key ones, one of them, continues to be personalization, personalizing investments, being able to do a level of client engagement at scale, and just being able to make sure that as an advisor, you're able to speak to your clients and, more importantly, do what they need you to do in an efficient manner, right? So I think personalization is one of them. The other one that's been sort of like discussed a lot with clients is around growth and them growing their firms. And that takes a couple of different turns really quickly, right? I think we've been talking about the wealth transfer, the great wealth transfer for years now. And depending on who you talk with and what you read, it's somewhere between 15 trillion and 84 trillion is going to change hands by 2045, right? Again, depending on which study you're reading, it's somewhere between 80 and 98% of millennials say that they're not going to use their parents' financial advisor, right? Only 34% of wealth managers think they're capable of handling, are truly capable of handling, the unique needs of millennials, right? And so I think that the wealth transfer is a big deal, especially when you start talking about growth and how to grow and maintain your business. The other really interesting one I've had with a couple of clients is around RMDs. So the mandatory distributions that have to start happening or are starting to happen with baby boomers, right? And so interestingly enough, if I'm going to use round numbers, right, but $1 billion in assets under management, and 5% of that has to go to mandatory distributions, you've got to either convince clients to reinvest that in a regular account with you and don't use it for their living expenses, right? Or you've got to replace that. And so if you want to grow by 5% and you're losing 5%, you've got to come up with 10% new AUM, right? And so it's just a very interesting time because it isn't just about maintaining, right? It's about growing your business. And so all of a sudden now you put these two things together where odds are, or at least, again, depending on the survey you look at, you're not going to be able to maintain your clients' children, right? And then on top of that, even before that happens, you're losing a percentage of your AUM to retirement that you've got to replace. So growth in the industry and advisor growth is a big one. And then finally, I feel like if we don't mention AI in some way, shape, or form, we're going to be hung out.
Nobody will listen to you anymore. Yeah. So work it into the conversation here, Chris.
Randy's exploring some really unique ways to use AI, but in general, how it's used and what it's used for will change and will evolve based on regulations, based on the needs of the clients, based on everything else. And then wrapping that all up into a technology sort of binder. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of things, and it's kind of daunting in some ways.
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, Chris kind of hinted at this, but how are these trends affecting the way that wealth managers manage their clients' assets and service those clients?
Yeah, Bill, that's a good question. Yeah, Chris hit on the head too about personalization. And I'm going to go back to what you said at the open, Bill. And I think this is exactly, this statement addresses how financial advisors have to address these trends. 100% of our customers and users create custom documents, proposals, reproposals, and fact sheets to communicate with their clients and turn prospects into clients. That tells me right there that our users are addressing those trends. They understand the trends and the importance of offering a personalized service, a personalized products, personalized reports in order to address those trends. And we're seeing that play out with Zephyr. I think that biggest trend that financial advisors have had to address has been with personalization. Chris talked about AI and all these other things. It's just tools that help increase the personalization that a financial advisor can offer their clients. And it all begins with personalized service and communication. Now, we talk a lot about how important it is to offer personalized service and products to meet the evolving demands of clients. In fact, Bill, we covered the importance of personalization in great detail during our 4th episode way back when.
Yeah.
So let's start with talking about offering personalized investments. Investors demand increased transparency, control, and personalized investments. In order to address those demands, wealth managers, they now have to conduct comprehensive manager searches and due diligence to align the unique objectives and views of each individual client. Years ago, a financial advisor could offer the same mutual fund or ETF across all their clients. Well, that no longer meets the needs of your clients and addresses these trends that we've talked about. Wealth managers now must conduct more detailed analysis and due diligence when searching for the investment that best aligns with the client's investment objectives and those unique views. Randy and I have completely different views. And if Chris is going to offer us the same mutual fund, I'm probably going to walk and be like, no, what I want is different than Randy. So that is probably one of the biggest trends is personalization. And in a lot of cases, that personalized investment comes in the way of separately managed accounts. And we're seeing that through our PSN database flows, the attention that we're getting in searches through SMAs and separately managed accounts is the increased demand for separately managed accounts because they offer personalization. And then lastly, communication. Very important, especially for advisors. There's a lot of studies out there that show one of the primary reasons why a client leaves an advisor is the lack of communication. So advisors can no longer produce cookie cutter reports to their clients. Every client is different in how they communicate, and what they expect from their advisor is different. It's important to understand how your clients want to communicate and receive reports. Some may want a 30-page report dealing very specific analytics like Omega and VAR and all this very in-depth analytics, while others may just want a 3-page high-level report updating them on the performance and if they're on track to meeting their goals. So understanding the way your clients want to communicate and get information about their investments is very important to enhancing that client experience. And again, it all goes back to what you said. We're seeing it play out through Zephyr, through our data, that 100% of our clients are using the tools that help create personalized service, personalized reports, personalized investments, and the advisors are seeing these trends and are addressing them.
Yeah, no, I understand. And it's like what it tells me is that advisors are taking Zephyr and using it in exactly the ways you're talking about, and addressing a little bit to Chris's point about the fact that it's like there's a lot of money, trillions of dollars worth of money that are going to be changing hands. And if you want to retain some of those people, Zephyr clearly appears to be a tool that you can, put really in that little arsenal of yours to address that and maybe make a sell. So, to tell people, look, before you run away, let's talk about what we can do for you and show it. And Randy, this question kind of goes to you as a matter of fact, because it's like, how do you and the Zephyr product team determine if the trends that you're seeing and some of the trends that Chris talked about have staying power or just a fad when you're constructing your roadmap? And I do want to go back to that AI reference, because there are people now in the market who are going, oh, the AI is overblown and people overreacted to it. And I'm curious about your take on all of that.
Well, that's the $64,000 question from the product side. How do you sift through, as Chris mentioned, where trends are changing frequently, but a number of ways we address it and try to validate it from the product side. We take all the trends and I'll mention the resources that we use, and we put them into themes. So we try to take lots of things and put those into smaller things that have patterns that, indicate that, okay, this trend has these 5 components and we're seeing that pretty consistently. These trends belong, there's another theme. So we've talked about it: personalization, scalability, security, compliance, AI. Those are the themes that we are seeing that are staying power. And some of the trends may come and go within them, but our team essentially is just reading resources every morning: wealthmanagement.com, Fundfire. So one is having resources where we can even track the trends and then look for patterns and apply those to the themes that we have in our playbook. We attend lots of webinars for Cerulli, for wealthmanagement.com, same thing. The more consistency, the more different avenues we can pursue for resources, and then we see the same types of patterns and the same trends coming up, we can bucket them into our themes. We have had consulting engagements with outside Zephyr consultants that will help validate what the trends we're seeing and do they have staying power. All right. So then we use that as a resource as well. And then one of the biggest is just voice of the customer, really talking to our clients. They're doing the same thing. They're seeing trends. They're not sure what will be fads or staying power. But again, the more data points that we can get related to a trend and then get that into a theme, that's essentially how we go about it from the product side to try to differentiate what is a fad versus what has staying power.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the ways that Zephyr's addressed this trend over the past year or so?
If we start, again, I stick to the themes. So right now, and we'll talk about AI because that's something we're pursuing, not something we did in the last year, but the things that we actually did release that add value. I start with scalability. As Chris had mentioned, when we're looking at the wealth transfer, the next generations, how they want their data, when they want it, is much different than the older generations. So we've actually built our performance reporting into the Zephyr platform. It is an extremely dynamic front end. So it's more of sitting down with a tablet, potentially going through the actual analysis with a client. So the next generations, there are lots of bells and whistles. You can click in and drill down on charts. So it's not a PDF process. It's a more dynamic process that will help our clients scale with the next generations of this wealth transfer. One of the other big ones, again, along those lines with the personalization, we have a page designer that I think we've talked about in the past where our clients create custom content and custom pages. Well, we took the performance content and built that out into our page designer. So we've raised the bar on the level of customization and personalization that our clients can put together for each individual client. Then we have simplifying the complex. So this is another of the themes that I bring up, where we've added business intelligence reports for an entire book of business. So if you're an advisory firm and you're a manager and you'd like to see business intelligence across your entire advisors group books of business, we've added really simplifying the complex in that perspective by creating and adding a new business intelligence reporting module. Then we also address security and compliance. So we've seen a theme where potentially clients are now going to digital vaults to store any number of data and documents. So we partnered with a firm called Future Vault that provides those services. And now we can export reports and content from Zephyr directly into a digital vault. So that's kind of one of the trends and themes we've seen is the digital vault concept. And then we have a couple that aren't necessarily on the themes that I track, but are very important. We're seeing a trend it took a long time for our clients to move from analyzing quarterly data, for example, down to monthly data. Yeah. Now it's going to daily data. We're basically releasing, now higher frequency data analysis. That is another trend that we're seeing and those requirements for that. And then the last one is the asset managers. We've talking to our sales team and reading the sources that we have. There seems to be a challenge for distribution of products from an asset manager perspective, and the sales process in general, really getting their story out there. So at Zephyr, we built a new package, a whole new process called Asset Manager Experience, which is designed specifically to help asset managers distribute and sell their products. So that's a lot to cover in a little bit, but we've hit at least all 5 of the themes and the trends that we're seeing, and then a couple of other trends that we're seeing outside of the themes that we're tracking, with high frequency data, with the asset managers challenges with distribution. So we've had a pretty busy last year and trying to focus on these elements of trends and/or themes.
Yeah, that is a lot to cover. But what it tells me, listening to it, is that you're very responsive to your clients, and you're delivering on what they need, as a matter of fact. Chris, I want to come to you for some final thoughts. And as I do that, I want to remind people that any developments in terms of AI anywhere, AI is only as good as the database that it draws upon. And I look at Zephyr, and as I become more and more familiar with it, it is a really vast, dynamic database that really does allow financial advisors and others to customize, to personalize, to do all kinds of really dynamic things. So why don't you tell us how Zephyr is helping wealth managers address their client demands and help build trust and the assets under management?
Oh, geez, Bill, how much time do you have?
I was going to say, this is really I'm sorry to hit you with a giant question at the end, but let's go.
Yeah. So I think, if we look at it in in terms of the 3 or 4 that I outlined, right, and thinking personalization first. So I think from an investment standpoint, we offer an incredibly diverse variety of data so that it makes it easy for advisors to create a portfolio or report on a portfolio that contains multiple different investments, everything from individual securities, SMAs, ETFs, mutual funds, private investments, with all of the ability for clients or for advisors to upload their own data. And so make it incredibly easy to personalize and create a personalized portfolio, and then do the analysis on that portfolio and really show the client why this portfolio is better than something else, and in the way that makes most sense for the client.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of explaining, I sort of think back to when I was, when I was in graduate school, right? Then they said, PowerPoint, tell them once, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them again. Right. And so, people don't have patience for that anymore. That just sort of shows you how old I am. But if you can tell a story the way your clients want to hear it, they'll get it quickly and easily. And that's, so on the personalization front, both on the investments and, what Ryan was saying about the presentations and the client engagement. On the growth side, being able to better understand your client's needs and then show them what's going to happen for various scenarios. So Zephyr offers a couple of different things, one around Monte Carlo planning, right? So am I going to run out of money in the next 15, 20 years, whatever the case may be? Right. I think also there's a pretty unique feature that we just released that allows advisors to actually look at the systemic withdrawals for RMDs and see what the impact of the portfolio is going to be, right, at a detailed level. So not only does it say, don't worry, Chris, you're not going to run out of money. It says, hey, if you take out, $50,000 a year for the next 30 years, you're never going to run out of money. So it gives that extra depth of really understanding of where that's going to go. And then you can have conversations with your clients now about, hey, take some of that money, reinvest it, put it in a regular account, whatever the case may be, to keep it there. And also, have those conversations with, look, as much as some people would like to live forever, it's not going to happen, right? So let's involve your kids now in these discussions. And my kids will routinely, they're 24, but they will routinely go to my financial advisory meetings, and that's for two reasons. One is I want them to get that financial IQ, right? I want them to understand what's going on, right? But I also want to make sure that they're informed on where things are, what things are going to be, and everything like that. And that will inherently build their trust in my current advisor. And then finally, from an AI perspective, I think that there's a really broad spectrum of things out there. I mean, one of the coolest things Randy's done lately is feed a proposal through an AI engine, and it comes out with really the high level comparisons, right? So we give you a pretty detailed report on the comparisons of your current portfolio to a proposed portfolio,
right?
But running it through AI picks out the highlights of it very quickly. And so again, from an efficiency standpoint, you create this document and you go to your client, look, here's a 30-page document if you want it, but here are the 5 pieces, here are the 5 takeaways that you need from this. And I can see that happening not only in proposals, but in performance reporting. I can see it happening in asset allocation reporting, right? I can see it doing a lot of things way before we get to AI investing, where, to your point about where the data is coming from and everything else and how it can be influenced. So I think those are the areas that I think are the most pertinent for us. But hey, look, give us a call. Tell us what are you trying to solve for? What are you trying to do? We can, and if we can't help you, we'll see if we can't get somebody that can.
For those who are listening, who do they reach out to, Chris, and how do they do that?
Ryan's phone number is, no, I'm just kidding.
Let's dox Ryan on this podcast, okay? His home address and his phone number are.
Go to the website, zephyrfinancialsolutions.com. You can take a look at what's there, fill out a form. That's probably the best way, because then you can get an idea of what's going on. You can also, get the phone number and the email address from there. Take a look and look at, think about what you're trying to solve first, what problem you're trying to solve for first. And then I'm sure that any one of the 3 of us would be happy to jump on the phone with you and talk through it. If not, there are a whole bunch of people here that can help you get through that.
I don't know who to address this question to. It's just a really quick one, though. But it's like I'm hearing a lot of services, more and more services directed to financial advisors who want to grow their firms, right? And they're looking at, like, we don't want to be a 2-person firm. We want to be a 3 or 4 or 5-person firm. I think that you probably would want those people to reach out to you as well, right? Because Zephyr could be a key component in helping those firms grow their business into multiple financial advisors under one roof, right?
Yeah, it's not just advisors, Bill, right? As advisors want to spend more and more time with clients, it's analysts, it's office assistants, it's right. I mean, just simply hiring somebody else into your practice to create your performance reports or to create your client reporting or whatever the case may be, right? That can be done as well. So you don't have to jump into, bringing on a whole nother advisor.
Right.
But I think that, however you wanted to do it, we can help you get there.
Fantastic.
Hey, Bill, one last thing.
Go ahead, Ryan. Are you going to give us your phone number and stuff, man?
A phone number? Yeah, I don't give it out very often, so I don't even remember. Here it is.
I forgot it. I don't know what it is. I got to look it up. I don't have that with me.
regarding the greatest wealth transfer, Chris brought up a good point about starting to have those conversations with the kids and getting to know them. I think even more important than that is the wives. So during this transfer, women are going to own the majority of assets. Okay. Yeah. And if you don't start as a financial advisor, if you don't start addressing and talking to and having meetings with women and understanding, and this is going to go to personalization, it's proven that women invest more in their values, their beliefs, their morals than men do. Men invest more with returns in mind. They just want to highest returns, all about analytics. Women are completely different. They want to invest longer term, think of the bigger picture. So if they're going to start owning the majority of the wealth here shortly, you got to start addressing the women, the wives of these relationships, and bringing them into the conversation, because you need to find out more about them if you want to keep that money under assets, and find out what they want from this relationship, how they invest, how to communicate with them, and their personalization. So that is one thing, a trend that's happening that maybe is not talked enough about, that needs to be front and center for these financial advisors.
No, that is a really good point, and what a great one to close on, reminding our listening audience that the four of us, at the very least, are going to be outlived. And then our wives are all going to get the money and try to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah. That's a whole other conversation about.
I was going to say, that's a whole other.
Set up your trust and stuff like that, but I digress.
For those of you who are listening to this podcast for the first time, one of the things you could do right now, just short of reaching out to either Randy or Chris or Ryan, is hit subscribe. You can follow the podcast. Not only will you be notified when a new episode drops, but you will be able to look at past episodes. And we've referenced a couple in here. And if you're curious about the notion of personalization, we did a whole podcast on exactly how you can potentially personalize everything you present to your clients. So do go back and give those a listen. In the meantime, until the next podcast, I'm Bill Tucker, thanking you for listening today and reminding you that you can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice. Make it wisely. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to A to Zephyr. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and be sure to check today's show notes on how you can get in touch with us. Once again, thank you for listening. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Zephyr. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.